Doctors are rushed with their patients. Like nobody is liking the system. So now that we have this awareness, you move through different stages of kind of change and change to different policies.
I was looking at another healer in the gut health space, and she was sharing something interesting about how um, nowadays there are all these fad diets and new trends for health. Whereas what we have to do is just kind of backtrack and see what our ancestors did, right? Like picking.
Once I saw in my own body kind of that my body was on fire in the inside, I was like, oh my goodness, I obviously have to do something about this. And really, we have to start to harness our own health because otherwise nobody else will. And in this, the way that the system is set up. And a lot of people, women, specifically who I work with, and men too, like if you're in burnout, your minerals are typically depleted or all over the map. And you can't really start building a healthy gut when you're in a state of depletion. And stress, unfortunately, depletes some of our four, most vital minerals. Stress depletes them. So that's where I think, you can't really have people on a bunch of different supplements and protocols before you really give them more of what they need with their minerals.
Hey, before we dive in, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here. It means so much to me. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to hit subscribe and join us on this journey. You see, we created BioBelly because gut health changed everything for me and the people I love. I watched my best friend Ankit battle ulcerative colitis and my aunt struggle with IBS-C, and seeing their pain showed me how broken the system really is. There's so much confusion out there and so little care that feels personal or hopeful. BioBelly exists to change just that, with science you can trust, education that empowers you, and solutions that actually help. So if you believe in making gut health simple, compassionate, and effective, I'd love for you to subscribe and be part of this movement with us. And for little daily gut health tips and encouragement, you can always find me on TikTok at the Gut Guy. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to the BioBelly Show. So today's guest is Kara Gray, a mom of three, a registered nurse, and now a functional medicine gut health coach. Kara went from working inside a system that often treats symptoms to building a career helping people uncover the root cause of their health struggles. She knows what burnout feels like, and she's made it her mission to guide women and healthcare workers to regulate their nervous system, heal their gut, and rebuild their energy from the ground up. This episode is way more about than just gut health. It's about resilience, it's about recovery, and rewriting your story when the system may not get you all the answers. So, without further ado, let's hop into it. Kara, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Trishy. I'm happy to be here. Today's actually my
Yeah.
birthday, so it's a cool way
Oh,
to
yeah?
celebrate. Yeah, October 1st.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank
That's
you,
so
thank
cool.
you. So happy to be here.
October 1st. That's
Yeah.
nice having your golden birthday in year one.
Yes, yep,
Eh,
exactly.
Love it. Love it. I actually had mine when I was 18, so it was actually pretty perfect. It was like I got my license and I got my golden birthday at the same time
Oh, that's
because it was
perfect.
because
Yes.
it's July 18th. But
Yeah.
sorry, I digress again. All right, let's hop into it. So, Kara, can you share a bit about your personal journey? Because it's super interesting. What made you shift from, well, first, what got you into healthcare, and what made you shift from a nurse to a functional medicine and gut health coaching profession?
Sure. So I've been a nurse for 11 years, and I started out working in like high intensity environments. So my first job was cardiac surgery, ICU, and then I worked in like a general ICU, and I worked in ER, um, and I did that for a while, and that was also very exhausting, and it was hard doing that while having a family. But really, I started connecting the dots between what all of these patients were coming in with, a lot of their comorbidities, a lot of their diagnoses, were really, I was starting to notice a pattern. Like they're just, everybody has certain ones, right? And not to kind of go into all of them, but even like a lot of people were diabetic or pre-diabetic, high blood pressure, which is like called hypertension. A lot of patients had hyperlipidemia, so high cholesterol, just a lot of similar diagnoses across all these different patients. And I think as I was still a young nurse, but I was starting to kind of connect the dots, like, this just seems like this is very much like lifestyle related, you know? And I loved the fast-paced environments. I loved all the learning that I got from those type of environments, but eventually I was like, it's burning me out, being a mom working in these type of environments. I was seeing nurses, burn out and their own health starting to decline as we are trying to care for patients. Ironically, our own health is starting to decline and we'll eventually become patients, is what I've always like kind of like just imagine. I'm like, a lot of these nurses, maybe even myself, will end up on the other side of the bed, one day. And that's kind of how the system is set up. The system is very much of a sick care model, unfortunately. And as we kind of touched on previously before we started recording, about, a lot of things are unfortunately profit driven. And that's just the way it is right now. And fortunately, things are starting to change. People are starting to become aware of it and talking about big pharma and different aspects. But I just started to see a pattern. And then as I had been a nurse, for a couple years and had some babies, I myself was starting to just burn out and wasn't feeling like myself. And sometimes it takes maybe even a life event. For me, it was my son. He had gone from sleeping through the night, and then we switched him to a toddler bed, and he just was up throughout the night multiple times. And there went my workout time. There went, you know, um, m sleep in general. So then I'd wake up in the morning and would be craving carbs and just kind of like going down this burnout cycle that was kind of triggered from, it happened to be my son, his sleep cycle, but really it can be any triggering event in our life. It could be a divorce, it could be a death, it could be financial, whatever can trigger us to further slip down that slippery slope of burnout. And for me, like I said, it just had to do with, mom life, but I was still working full time as a nurse in a very high stress type of environment. And I eventually was like, I need help. Like something is just, it's not clicking as it was before. I felt like I was even starting to gain a little bit of weight. And like I said, it's very subtle where like a conventional doctor would be like, you're fine, you're fine. Like it's just, you're gaining a little bit of weight, you're a mom, you're this, you're stressed, easily brushed off in the normal system. But I ended up actually going to a functional doctor. And this was kind of after me learning about functional medicine, which we could kind of touch on. But learning about functional medicine, going to eventually a functional doctor and, getting labs drawn that would have never been found or even drawn from a conventional doctor, yet alone found. And I had inflammation like through the roof. And my blood sugar, my A1C was high, my fasting insulin was high. And like these are like all like little signs that would not have been, like, picked up, until I actually probably would have met a diagnosis criteria, right? And became diabetic or hit that magic A1C number where it's like, okay. So really realizing like the system is just not set up to keep us out of it and to keep us healthy. It's really set up to, unfortunately, kind of profit off of us and get us in the cycle of becoming a patient and then staying a patient. And once that all really clicked for me, I was like, I love being a nurse. I still am a nurse. I just I don't work as much, but and I have my own business, but just realizing like this is just not how it has to be. And really we have to start to harness our own health because otherwise nobody else will. And in this the way that the system is set up. Um so that's kind of how I got into it. I became certified as a health coach then, functional medicine health coach, and kind of just started learning more and more and diving deeper into wellness. So, and realizing that there are so many layers to our health that conventional medicine will never see. And it's really with just like the root cause approach of functional medicine that truly aligns with me. So,
Love it, love it. And could we speak a little bit more deeply into that process where you did have that aha moment where you were able to see a functional doctor see these very intricate aspects of your health that conventional medicine did not shed a light on, the inflammation, the A1C levels. So at that point, from there to to full health or a full recovery of, just the burnout. Could you walk us through that process?
sure. Once I saw in my own body kind of that my body was on fire in the inside, I was like, oh my goodness, I obviously have to do something about this because as I had learned back then, inflammation, which is more common knowledge now, fortunately, but inflammation is the driving factor to so many diseases, cancers, chronic conditions, neurodegenerative diseases, all of it. It's all connected. Um, so I just realized, like, now I'm especially a mom. I want to be here for my kids as long as possible. I don't want to be on the other side of the patient bed. So learning, what I can do every single day in real life that can move the needle, from targeted supplementation, targeted like just functional lab work that peels back the layers, that conventional medicine doctors don't always see with their standard blood draws. So that's where I learned about just, inflammation. And I got on like glutathione in particular, which is a master antioxidant. I learned about glutathione and that I started that and just focusing on my stress and my environment, how I'm responding to my environment. Um, Relationships play a big part too. Like functional medicine is truly an huge encapsulation of everything from our food, our water, our air, our relationships, our financial health, our children, the age of our home, whether there's a mold issue, parasites. So then it just popped the lid off of basically, oh my goodness, this could be huge, like, and really realizing, there's so much, it's almost, I don't wanna say a rabbit hole, but it was just the scratching the surface, and then I learned more and more and more. So it opened up my eyes to, you know, I was healthy, like, so I thought I was working out, I was, lean, doing all these things, but my body was still in fight or flight and high inflammatory markers. So I thought to myself, "Oh my goodness, if I am already like kind of getting sick on the inside, I can only imagine the American population and the other people that, didn't even fit my type of my body physique that I had and I was still on fire on the inside." So it just really changed my whole perspective on health and really how health is created. And it truly does start with the grocery store, to be quite honest, or the farmer's market. It all starts there. And then, you can build out from there with targeted supplementation and, movement and high quality clean water, minerals, fiber, all of it. It's just, there's so many pieces to the puzzle, which is also a beautiful thing because there's so many little aspects that every single day you can tackle and try to make a difference on. And it is a positive message, I think, to everybody now that we actually do hold the power of our health in our own hands versus we kind of have been led to believe as we get older, things are just going to decline and it's normal to be on one or two medications and then eventually three or four and to have a couple diagnoses. We were led to believe that that's all normal. And I guess you almost feel like it is if you don't understand how disease starts in the first place. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I felt very empowered by learning about root cause healing and functional medicine and that this is good news. This is empowering that now I can make a difference and, try to keep that pendulum from swinging towards dis-ease where it actually presents itself as a disease in the body. So yeah.
Love it, love it. And if we could dive into this root cause healing, by the way, it's so inspiring to see how you were able to channel the issues that you had through this inflammation into a, a labor of love to help others. It's super inspiring, right? Because it's textbook doing what you love and bringing value to others in the best way you know how, in your zone of genius. I'm actually reading a book,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry. I was just saying, I was actually reading a book just now, and in it, it's called The Big Leap. And I'm reading it to
Mhm.
understand, to just be a little bit more intentional with everything I do. And I bring this up only because you were saying that functional health, it's everything. It's even the mental, right? And
Mhm.
and one thing I'm realizing is that when you have I think he was talking about an alignment of your mind, body, and soul. When you have an alignment when you're doing something, the power and the vibration you bring to that work is
Yes.
just in a totally other level, other stratosphere. Um,
Yes, absolutely. You're on your journey of obviously learning more and more, and yes, when you're I like to call it like almost being, of course, in alignment, but in like a flow state where things are just flowing natural and just feeling right, and the vibrations, the energy, all of it, is transformative and like almost palpable, So yes, I felt like with nursing, I went into nursing to help people to make a difference. And I actually wanted to eventually go back to school to be a nurse anesthetist, ironically, which is administering drugs to put patients to sleep and quite different than what I am pivoting into now. But life is a journey. We learn as we go and we change as humans, I think, and pivot. And that's okay to pivot. And now I just feel like I'm more in alignment with helping people and clients in this form versus through traditional nursing, which is very important. Nurses are amazing. But now my alignment specifically is more to help on the preventative side of medicine.
Love it. So let's dive into that, right? I was looking at your Instagram and I heard about the amazing rapid relief protocol. Could you walk us through what that looks like and how clients begin to feel better quickly?
Sure. So I offer a 4-month protocol, well, gut brain reset program, I should say. And in that, we start with like targeted testing, whether it's GI map, HTMA, or both, depending on, more specific for the client. And based on kind of those results and also what we've uncovered on just their lifestyle and having kind of the deep dive call that we do, they immediately get kind of like an instant protocol where they can feel like they can start making changes. Like instantly, they don't feel maybe so confused and lost. And it's a rapid relief. So basically, driving down inflammation, making you have more energy automatically from just the stuff that I feel like has became common sense to me, and I'm sure other people. Some people just don't know it though, and teaching them ways that they can instantly feel relief in their day-to-day life and sleep better, eat better, and basically the goal is to drive down that inflammation and start to improve their gut health, slowly but surely, even before like lab testing comes back. So things that they can do immediately before their labs come back.
Love it, love it. So from my understanding, that first lab, a GI map or an HTMA, am I correct? Yeah.
Yes, correct.
So what would prompt us to pick one or the other when we are consulting a client?
They're really both good to go hand in hand together.
Mhm.
Because really we all need to know what our gut health looks like and what's actually happening in the gut microbiome, which is where a GI map comes in. But the minerals are really, I'd say, even more foundational than even doing a GI map, to be quite
Wow.
honest.
Mhm.
And this is like digging very deep into true root causes. But like our body is made up of obviously minerals and different ratios of minerals. And HTMA it stands for hair tissue mineral analysis. And essentially, you just take a sample from 5 different spots, of your hair. It's don't worry, like, a lot of women freak out that they're cutting off a bunch of their hair. They're not. I've done it myself. Um, But what kind of comes out and grows on that first little section of your hair is kind of your metabolic status kind of locked into the tissues. And we get to really see your minerals, and which is minerals are even foundational to creating stomach acid and to help with your gut health, right? It really kind of comes back to minerals. And a lot of people, women, specifically who I work with, and men too, like if you're in burnout, your minerals are typically depleted or all over the map. And you can't really start building a healthy gut when you're in a state of depletion. And stress, unfortunately, depletes some of our four, most vital minerals. Stress depletes them. So that's where I think, you can't really have people on a bunch of different supplements and protocols before you really give them more of what they need with their minerals. And actually with HTMA, I use a specific company then that formulates a custom blend of minerals um, based on their hair tissue mineral analysis. And then it actually comes to their house with their name on it, made for them based on their results, which I think is huge for people that are busy moms and they're busy healthcare providers, nurses, even, busy dads, like, we're busy and they don't want to be taking a million supplements right off the bat. Maybe down the road, as they can add more things as their energy builds. But I think with the company that I use, I really want it to be very seamless. Build them, give them the nutrients that their body craves to help with their mineral levels. And also it looks at heavy metals as well. I forgot to mention that. And this company also has binders that help pull out the heavy metals as your mineral rebalancing. And then I feel like a GI map to kind of see where we're at when once you've started the mineral balancing protocol. So there's a lot of pieces to it. But it's all exciting. And my goal is to really simplify it for my clients because obviously, when they're coming to somebody, for help, they're not probably feeling their best. They're not having a lot of energy. They're stuck in survival mode, as I mentioned a lot, even on my Instagram account, because I've been there. You don't have a lot of energy to expend. So really simplifying their supplementation and giving them all those nutrients and minerals that they need. And then we can kind of do the next phase.
How is it in the body that stress is depleting these minerals?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact physiological, down to, like, the chemistry of it, but stress, I do know that we lose, like, our 4 most vital minerals, sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. They tend to, drop, especially magnesium and sodium, potassium, with stress. Um and those are like our 4 most
Right.
important minerals that drive, everything going on in the body. And magnesium being one of them, a lot of people are magnesium deficient. And there's many different reasons for this. Like I said, stress, our food, we're not eating whole, clean food like we maybe our ancestors did. It's a lot of foods processed, so it doesn't really have any source of magnesium. And then if you do make it to the point where you are buying whole foods and you're at the grocery store, those foods themselves are could be genetically modified or they're grown in soil that's not regenerative and it's stripped of the magnesium in the soil. So it's almost like I hate to say it, but it's like we're kind of set up to fail in the system. So you really have to swim it's like swimming upstream and having to kind of figure this out, I don't want to say on your own because that's where you can partner with a health coach like myself to really come alongside of you and be that partner in change, be that accountability partner, that support, that person that you can message, pretty much at any hours of the day, or if you're at the grocery store and you have a question about something, that person that is there for you. And that is, I think, what makes all of the difference in our society. As is, I don't have all the answers. I don't know it all, but I think coaching in itself with the accountability and support is huge. because obviously, in the conventional model, you go to a doctor's, you're there with them for no more than 15 minutes, and they don't see you again for another 6 months to a year. And you're left to your own kind of demise during that next time. And you're left with the world that we live in. It's stressful and, all of it, is kind of crashing down on us. So it's helpful to have that partner in change to kind of guide us along the journey.
That's beautiful. Yeah, because I think it was just yesterday I was looking at another healer in the gut health space, and she was sharing something interesting about how um, nowadays there are all these fad diets and new trends for health, whereas what we have to do is just kind of backtrack and see what our ancestors
I
did, right? Like picking,
Yes, I
right?
love that you just made that point. Yes, I think it's getting more and more confusing out there. There's conflicting, diets and fads all over the place. It's flooding our feeds, and we're hearing people talk that are really don't really know exactly maybe what they're talking about, and I mean that in the best way, and then we take their advice and we run with it, and people are just kind of, I feel like, lost on this hamster wheel of life trying to sort through. We have so much information now at our fingertips that it's almost too much information. It's too overwhelming, and that is where, also how I just talked about simplifying the mineral supplementation. It also goes back to simplifying our food. I don't coach my clients through diets. It's just not about that, and, I don't follow any fad diets. I do think there's a time and place for healthy fasting, I do, because there is, real benefits to fasting with autophagy and cleaning up the cellular debris, but overall, no, it comes back to real, whole, nutrient-dense foods, and focusing also on fiber once we can get your body to the point where it's tolerating fiber, because unfortunately there are a lot of clients, that can't always tolerate fiber right off the bat because their gut microbiome is just not ready for it, based on kind of
Mhm.
how they had been eating previously. So yeah, there's a lot to it, and it can be overwhelming, and that's where I think having a health coach can really help people cut through the noise and stay really focused and do one thing at a time, because over otherwise it's very, very confusing. And we're getting, supplements coming to our ads on, our meta ads, and people are clicking and buying the supplement. Everybody's hoping for a quick fix, but it doesn't work like that. And we want to build healthy, sustainable habits that will compound, that will become just our part of our lifestyle. That's my goal, is when my clients, they now eat part of their lifestyle, it's just part of who they are now. They don't look at it as a diet, as deprivation. It's how they want to fuel their body now, and that's the difference. When you get to that point where you now know how good you feel on certain types of foods, you don't wanna go back, and that is when you're starting to create that lifestyle change, and that is the most powerful pivot right there, I think. But like I said, you almost need a health coach to help you get to that point where you're like, wow, I feel so good. Now this is becoming part of my lifestyle. And that is the golden ticket right there. And that doesn't mean,
Right.
you can't enjoy yourself and go, enjoy those foods every now and then, but you do it now knowing sometimes, what it might cost you, and that's okay if you still wanna go make that decision, but now you're informed and you're empowered, and that is the key.
Mm.
So
That is so powerful because yeah, I'm right with you,
Yes.
Kara. Like I feel like nowadays, especially in the gut health space, when people are strict, when people have gut issues like IBS or bloating or GERD, even because there's not that much information, like people aren't informed, they're very easily swayed by the marketing of a lot of these supplement brands. Probiotics is gonna say 50 billion CFU, and you're like, wow, 50 billion, that must be
right,
a lot. But you don't know if that strain is proven in human clinical trials to have produced a positive effect in that symptom that you are
correct.
facing.
Yeah,
Um,
there's so many different
so it's
pieces to the puzzle, and it's simple, but it's also not as simple, and people can kinda sometimes, unknowingly cause themselves maybe more harm or spend unnecessary money on just things that, aren't really going to move the needle either. And that's the other factor is you want to start out with doing something that makes you feel like you're moving the needle. It's human psychology. Once we get one small win, it's momentum. And that's the other thing with coaching. I want them to get those quick, small wins so we can keep that momentum going. And then they have that positive reinforcement and they're ready for the next thing and the next thing. And it's just, but you have to start small and go slow and not be so easily, swayed by all the marketing and all the different probiotic brands that are out there. And that's the other thing to touch on, like, spore-based probiotics are really the best, and a lot of people are blowing
Right.
their money on, probiotics that don't survive past the stomach acid, and that's
Right.
where, just have to take a step back sometimes and also take it back to the basics before you're going to go spend, X amount of money on probiotics unknowingly. Why don't, people work on nervous system regulation and ways to calm their body and movement, going to the gym or walking, lifting weights, and then also start with, one healthy meal a day and slowly build. And then you can add in those other things. But I think people are so quick to jump to supplements and this and that and not focus taking it back to the foundations, kind of as you were even talking about our ancestors. Take it back, simplify. Don't no fads, no diets, like simplify as far as even getting off your phone sometimes and unplugging. I mean, there's so much that I could talk about honestly, but like the EMF exposure and what that's doing to our gut
Right.
and like get up, but let's simplify. Let's get off our phones. Let's get out in nature. Let's get our feet on the ground, teach our kids also to have their feet touch the ground. That also builds our gut microbiome, right? When we are introducing even some normal bacteria that's like on the ground and dirt and all these things. Like, let's just think about how did our ancestors like live, before we were inundated with all of this technology and information and overwhelm and stress and careers and money. How did they live? And the closer we can start getting to that, I think that's when our health can truly start to flourish.
Love it. And so diving back deep into the rapid relief protocol, um, I think yeah, so the GI map and the hormone panel, the hair tissue mineral
Hmm.
panel, that's amazing. But after that, when we have that follow-up deep dive and we're really trying to um nitpick beyond like health issues, like what are maybe the driving factors in terms of mental stress or past trauma or even just a bad relationship with food, how do those conversations look?
Sure. All of that kind of comes up as we are going through the coaching process, right? So,
Right.
in my program, they have, biweekly Zoom calls with me. And one of the first
Mhm.
Zoom calls is our, deep dive call where I'm really digging deep into their day-to-day life, what they eat, like, having them start the food journal and getting to know them. I have to get to know what their day-to-day life is even like to know how to effectively coach them. And all those conversations keep will come up through sometimes it doesn't all come up on the first call, right? Sometimes there is hidden trauma and stuff that comes up later. I then also, as a health coach, will know when to refer out because I am not going to coach somebody through trauma. I'm not trained in that aspect at all. So also knowing the professional limitations, but it's good to be
Right.
aware of that as a health coach of how trauma is affecting somebody's body, and I do believe trauma is stored in the body, right? So just being generally aware of that can, cause, many different things, and maybe somebody's trauma, everybody has different trauma, and trauma can manifest differently in different bodies, literally. So just being trauma informed, trauma aware, and that's also where functional medicine comes in. It does look at all of these factors, including trauma, including childhood antibiotics, um, everything that can tie into it. And like I said, kind of starting with the small baby steps first to get these people to slowly start moving maybe the dark place that they feel like they're in with their health, and get them those quick wins, get them the energy, and slowly move down the trajectory. And maybe part of, working together is, hey, I really think with some things that we've talked about, maybe you want to explore, a counselor or, a therapist or psychologist, and letting them then have another person that they can also partner up with, which can be used as a, kind of like a comprehensive approach to helping this client with their health. Because I can talk about food and stress and all these things all day long, but if they haven't processed even some traumas, or they're still having relationship issues, I'm obviously not a relationship coach or a counselor. That also needs to be part of the
Right.
uh the picture. And I think that's where um looking at that whole body approach is just so huge.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really like it, right? Because it's like, whenever you're, with a client, you basically have the Swiss Army knife of different tools you can use to properly understand, 1, what that root cause is, and 2, how do I get this person feeling better?
Yes, yes, and it's almost like an elephant. I was on the phone with somebody one day, and they were like, "It's kinda like, Kara, having a big elephant in the room. You know you have to eat. It's overwhelming. Where do you even start? You just take one little bite at a time," right? And that's kind of
One by
how
one.
I
Yeah.
can explain even just, right now, sometimes with complex, clients. And I think almost nowadays, a lot of people are becoming more and more complex. People are more and more sick than ever before. And there's so many different things that we can tackle, and it gets exciting and it gets overwhelming. But kind of my job is to like take a deep breath for them, help them take a deep breath and take
Right,
one thing at a time that's going to
right.
slowly, maybe it's
Mhm.
focusing on sleep first, because I'm sorry, like, you
Yeah.
can't focus on nutrition and, even going to the gym if you're not sleeping and you're not sleeping well, you know? So it's really like, what are the biggest things that we can start doing now to move that needle forward, And developing a sleep routine, and, harnessing the power of, like, your circadian rhythm and the sunlight and all the things that our ancestors were doing. They were getting the sunlight into their retinas that was telling them all the hormones were in a symphony based on the sun. And, so it's a lot, and we have to just take it back to the basics. Let's sleep. Let's eventually start to move our body. Some clients aren't ready to even start exercising, and that's okay. That's where, like, you have to meet them where they are, and that's what I try to do. I don't compare them to who I am and how I am. They are their own person, and if they don't have the energy to start exercising, we're gonna do what we can. We can also focus on what you're gonna eat then. You might not exercise. We can focus on what we're gonna eat and how we're gonna sleep, and then slowly just build and build and build. So it's a 4-month program, but honestly, like, it can continue. We can even continue together after the 4 months, and, and on a different basis. And then eventually, maybe just some check-ins here and there. And then, like I said, the ultimate goal is where they can kind of flap their wings, and it's become part of their lifestyle. And they at least have the knowledge now on how to read labels and how it all is connected to our health.
I love it. Kara, if I could ask you your favorite case, with a client where you felt like you just felt so fulfilled when, just following the analogy, they flapped their wings and they were going their way towards their healing path. And maybe they came to you super dilapidated, not knowing exactly how to figure out what's wrong with me. I have these energy issues. I'm burned out. Is there any story that comes to mind that brings a smile to your face to this day?
Yeah, there was a couple that I worked with, actually, husband and wife, and they were, on different medications themselves. They were even on a GLP-1, and which is totally, totally fine. But they had really no idea like how food was even affecting them. We were kind of starting from square one, to be quite honest. They didn't really even exercise that much, and it was like truly like ground level. Here we go, and they just completely flourished on just really working on the basics. We didn't even do any fancy labs. We weren't even at that point. We're like, we have to work on the basics. And they instantly started losing weight. And mind you, they were already on a GLP-1, but they started losing actual more weight from just from what they learned and what they were then starting to implement. And fortunately, they were also very eager. They did the work. They just needed a guide, and they were then able to kind of
Sure.
start to run with it, and they lost so much weight. They sent me like I think, each of them lost, I think 40 some, almost 50 pounds working together, and, they were always taking pictures then, like, showing me their hikes together, their walks for that accountability. They're showing me, like, their food, and they knew how to read labels, and they were like, "Man," I remember one time they were
Wow.
like, you can't unknow what you know." I was like, "I know." They're like, "Darn it, Kara, now we know all these things and now we can't unlearn it." I'm like, "I'm
Right.
sorry, but I'm not sorry because," and they were like, "I know, it's so
Right.
good now. Now we understand like how to all of it and fiber and how to read labels and just the movement and the stress, like it all clicked for them, and I can truly say like they're changed like forever. They're like, "This was the best investment. We are completely different now," and they still check in
Yeah.
with me, but, like, they don't always need me now, it's become part of their lifestyle,
Right.
you know, and
Yeah.
that to me is, like, that's a huge win. So that's what sticks out to me, and that's an example of you don't even sometimes have to do, lab work or fancy test, I should say, to truly move the needle because a lot of people aren't even doing the basics, you know? So taking it
Right.
back to the basics sometimes. Yep.
Absolutely. Step by step,
Yes.
right? Bit
Yep.
by bit.
Exactly.
Love it. So, speaking of baby steps, I wanted to you're a mom of 3.
Yes.
It's so amazing. I was wondering, so personally, I have nephews. I don't have the fortune yet to have children, but I have nephews, and very luckily, I live in a joint family, so I live with my
Okay.
nephews. Because it's like my grandma, and then it's like my family, it's my grandma, then it's my mom and my aunt, and there's my aunt's family, and then it's my family. So my cousin, so my aunt's son, he had 2 boys. So 4 and
Okay.
2, and even myself, like, I'm learning all this stuff about gut health, and I'm trying to see how could I optimize the child's or these kids' microbiome,
Mhm.
right? How can I make them more resilient? Because the more I read about it, and you mentioned child antibiotics, there apparently is an effect. Even the first 3-4 years of a child's life, it like affects like the rest of his life, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, me now being a mom, the cool thing about working with clients that are either parents or around kids, you don't even have to be a parent, is you can truly create like a ripple effect in whatever your family unit looks like, and every family looks different, but whoever you're living with or the kids that are in your lives, you can also teach them, all about our gut bugs. So I talk to my kids about their gut bugs and their belly, and if they eat something that maybe didn't make them feel good, peeling back and teaching them a little bit about that. I don't like to say good or bad foods, but foods that like make us feel good and that are healthy and good for our bodies, and treating teaching the kids about eating the rainbow and all the colors, and colors are
Ah,
so fun for kids. So even doing, like, little activities where they could even be in, like, a little competition of who ate the most amount of colors, and that creates, like, a diverse gut microbiome for these kids, and then if we start teaching kids while they're young and kids, they can become hopefully healthy adults, and we can really set them up for a lifetime of success. And also being wary and cautious as parents, or caregivers, with antibiotics, and using them very judiciously is the absolute key because unfortunately, it's so easy to throw on an antibiotic right when they start tugging on their ear. But sometimes, like, I've had to take a step back with my own kids and just waited a little bit, maybe did some warm compresses, and this is not medical advice by any means, but warm compresses, maybe garlic drops in the ear, and eventually waited it out. And they ended up not always needing a round of antibiotics. And then you just save that child, a year's worth of having their rainforest in their gut essentially mowed down because one round of antibiotics, it's like cuts it kills everything for up to like a year to start rebuilding. So they say, we don't really know how long it takes to truly rebuild. And then do they ever fully truly rebuild it with the way that kids like to eat and maybe just in our society now and all the sugar. So just empowering them to want to choose good foods because they feel really good on it, and I've had to have a lot of those talks with
Yeah.
my kids. And also sometimes you have to lovingly teach grandparents and other people that are in different generations that don't always know, kind of how things are changing in our world now, and learning the effects of what food does to our body and having those loving family conversations. So everybody is in it together. We all just want to be healthy. And, even going to the grocery store with your kids or with your nephews and like talking about the different fruits and vegetables as you're there is also such a cool thing. So I would do that with my kids. And also, buying your kids like a kid-friendly knife set, off of Amazon, plastic like knife set where they start to cut up veggies and stuff, and then it's really fun for them, and then they wanna eat them because they just cut them up, and it's so fun. So, like, little ways to,
Right.
like, tie it in to kids to get them excited, or help them make a healthy meal, like, with you in the kitchen, And that's how we can slowly teach our kids, and then also remembering that they are ultimately watching us. We are who they're watching, whether it's, a
Mhm.
cousin, a nephew, and yeah, everybody is they're watching, right? So leading by example. So I tried to lead by example. I'm far from perfect. I still, love certain foods every now and then. But overall, leading by example is another thing that we can do. So sometimes like if I'm eating like a salad, they want some of my salad, and I'll be like, "Oh, no, don't eat my salad," and then they keep wanting to eat it, right? So it's like
Yeah, yeah,
it can be
yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Love it. That's awesome. And yeah, that happens to be too, like the younger one. The older one, I think I'm not gonna say we messed up, but we got very so when he came into the family, we were so excited and we just wanted to spoil him, pamper him. And I remember even on his like first birthday, when we had like a cake, we're like, let's give him a lick of the chocolate cake. It's gonna make him
Yeah.
happy. And slowly, what I felt was over time he started, because he had a taste for the finer things like the
Mhm.
chocolates and the
Mhm.
candies, and I think that must have made it very difficult for him to find a liking to the basic foods, like to the broccoli, your veggie, your celery. And so I think it's in a situation where I feel like many parents slash uncles and aunts are, where you are trying to reverse some of the damage you've already done.
Yes.
Because for example, like, right, like in our family, we happen to be, just through lifestyle, we happen to be vegetarian.
Mhm.
The only reason is our aunt chose to be vegetarian, and when we moved from India to the States, we just, we're like, all right, we'll just do what you're doing, I
Mhm.
guess. Because we're vegetarian, there's very limited options in terms of
Mhm.
protein. Well, not very limited. There's still a lot of options, but the one thing my nephew likes is these Gardein, like soy based, these chicken nuggets, but they're
Yeah.
soy. And it gets me, right? Because it's like, I look at the label
Mhm.
and there's things in there that I would think it's like an industrial
Yes,
solution or something,
yes.
like like titanium dioxide. I was like, "What is that?"
Oh,
And I
no.
searched it up on Google, and it was like something that's banned in Europe, and I
Yep.
was like, "What? This is not okay." But it's like the only thing he likes. It's like that, or just white rice, or thank God, thank the gods, he loves fruits. So, if it's pears, watermelon, apple, he loves all the fruits. But like that's just fruit, right? I need to give him some calories, some
Right.
protein. So it's just a battle where I'm trying to, it's like a pull and tug where I'm trying to implement all these tools of eating in front of him, saying, "Oh, this is gonna make me strong." He loves Iron Man and Spider
Oh,
Man, so I'm
yeah.
like, if I need to jump like Spider Man, I need to eat this.
Yes.
I need to eat broccoli,
Yes. Yep.
right? So slowly, I think he's coming
I
around,
love
but
that. That's such
it's
a
tough.
good example. Like, you've already experienced it in your own life, of a child that is looking to you, and you can kinda use those moments as teachable moments that it's gonna stick with him for a lifetime, for sure, and making it relatable to kids, like you just said about Spider-Man or Iron Man. That's fun, and that it makes sense to them, you know? What did they my parents used to tell us,
Right.
like, "Eat your spinach like Popeye the Sailor Man." Whatever, that wasn't super
Right. Yeah,
relatable,
yeah.
but at least
That
now
was
it
convincing,
was
and
kinda
for
convincing,
me, that was super
but
convincing. I was like, "All right, I gotta do that."
but now there's
How about just 3
yeah,
bites, mom?
yeah. Now
Yeah.
there's so many different ways that I think we can get creative and help relate, and teach our kids. And like I said, that's where taking it back to, like, coaching, you coach one person of the family, and it's that person can also be the unit of change and the ripple effect for the rest of the family. So it's like tripling, quadrupling your investment, basically, you know what I mean? It's just how could you ever deny the importance of investing, in your health when it's going to eventually pay off for all those around you? And even if you live with nobody, maybe you're just nicer to people, and come to work with more energy, and it just the whole world can benefit from when we take our health into our own hands, and we then can show the
Yes.
world and show others our best, most energetic, high vibration self.
Absolutely. Moving on, Kara, I wanted to talk a little bit about burnout with you. You've been in the medical system. I was wondering, what do you feel is most often missing in how conventional healthcare approaches gut issues and burnout? And hopefully, what are ways we can improve that?
Yeah, so we have an incredible acute care system, right? If you break a bone, you have a heart attack, traditional medicine, it absolutely will save your life. But when it
Mhm.
comes to chronic conditions, like some of the ones I talked about in the beginning, even hypertension, high blood pressure, which is high blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, which is high cholesterol, and diabetes, all those kind of chronic conditions, including even like there's fatigue, people are dealing with hormonal issues, autoimmune disease, gut problems. They're just not typically found, like, always in conventional medicine based on just maybe the labs that they're running, and the time that they're spending actually getting to know their patients, unfortunately, because they just don't have the time now. And that's really not the doctor's fault. It's, I think, just the system's fault. So they're not peeling back all those layers. They're not doing like maybe, an hour deep dive with different coaching calls, right? Getting to actually know and talk and have a conversation with their patients or their clients. So how can you really truly help them with from a cause perspective when on top of it, not having the time, not, being able to educate and make it personalized to them, these doctors are also unfortunately not educated themselves on nutrition and a root cause approach to health. So it's also not their fault either. They're not educated on that. So it's just kind of how the system is. So unfortunately, that's what's missing in the system is time, education, and personalization to people's health.
I love that. I love that because I feel like personalization is where it's at, right? When you were even mentioning that amazing service that can be done through that hair tissue analysis, it's like they just, they find the cues and what's deficient. They create a beautiful supplement cocktail for the
Mhm.
client, and it's so seamless and it's just tailored for the patient. And I feel like that's where healthcare might be going, right?
Mhm.
In terms of um, being more personalized. And because, I think about it, Kara, it's like it is difficult, right? In the healthcare system, because it's like they do need to have like a standardized way to do
It's fine.
things. Otherwise, how do you scale to that level? And so I understand why there are these protocols, but at the same time, I try to think like, how is it that amazing healers like yourself could scale your
Okay.
reach? Meaning, if you, Kara, you were able to build a team and you were to have like 30 healers just like yourself, and you were able to make a network of these um well, how do I say it? Like in the event like someone had a mental issue, then or a relationship problem, like you have a team of people to divert them to. So it's like basically a huge Swiss Army
Okay.
knife, and it's basically you times a
Yeah, like an
hundred.
ecosystem.
That's kind of right, like an
Hmm.
ecosystem, right? Like I try to think about it. I'm like, what would the future of healthcare look like if we were to personalize it and were to not guarantee but ensure in the best in our with our best efforts that someone that a client walking through our door, they're going to leave
Hmm.
informed and set on a path that's leading to true healing.
Right. I think we are slowly going to get there because it starts with awareness.
Mhm.
I think more and more people are now aware
Right.
that this sick care
Right.
model is not working. Doctors don't even like it. Doctors are rushed with their patients. Like nobody is liking the system. So now that we have this awareness, you move through different stages of kind of change and change to different policies and there's people that are making big policy changes that can have that ripple effect. But really I think it comes down to people feeling truly empowered with their own health and not like, oh, I have diabetes. I'm going to have it forever. I'm going to be on this pill forever. And I have high blood pressure. It runs in my family. That's just how. No, like these are lies that we've been told. I think more and more people just realizing they hold the key to their health in their own hands with what they're doing every single day of their life. That is going to move the needle more than genetics, epigenetics, all these things. It comes down to your day to day, your habits, what you're eating, and your overall, mental resilience. There's all these different factors. So I think eventually, maybe with, AI, um, there will be the ability for doctors to spend more time with their patients, with AI dictation, different things that we can harness these tools of technology, which at the same time I don't like them, but they can, if used properly, can help doctors get back their time. And I think doctors also, and maybe change the medical school structure and teaching them in medical school more of a root cause approach. So it's almost like the whole system has to be like you know, um, has to really be, like, uprooted in a sense,
Right.
and it's a
Right.
lot, so it's
It's
a
a lot.
lot. I don't know when it's gonna
But
happen, or and how, but, I think, as more and more people just become aware and knowledgeable, and that's where social media as much as social media is not always the best, social media has educated in some ways, that there is, there's a monetary driving force, in the sick care model because they can make more money off of heart catheterizations and meds and invasive procedures and surgeries. So now we have to figure out like how can we focus more on prevention? And people are talking about big pharma now, all these things. So we're aware, but now how are things going to start to eventually change in such a big system? I don't know. But I think, eventually we'll get there.
step by step,
Yep.
just like you said.
Yep. And maybe
Love it.
insurance starting to cover,
Yeah.
coaching, and insurance starting to cover,
Right.
these different root cause type of labs, people don't have to pay out of pocket for, um, maybe it starts with that, I'm not sure.
Absolutely.
That's above my pay
Yeah.
grade.
You know, I think you were right on it, right? Like it's like when people feel pain, they will express themselves and they will say that this system is not serving
Mhm.
me. And when there's enough people behind that, 100% something is bound to change.
Right.
And I'm very optimistic about that.
Yes.
Um, and what's interesting is when we think about this healthcare system, and I think you were talking about it before a little bit as well. It's like we focus more on the client or the patient in the healthcare system,
Mhm.
um, thinking that with a more holistic approach, it's going to help the patient. But, I would argue it's also the other way around where the having a holistic approach towards health, it's also probably better for the healer or for the nurse or for the doctor,
Mhm.
right? Because they have one thing is um they're more aligned with what they're
Mhm.
doing, right? Because they feel like one thing is if they don't know something or if it's not their expertise, they can divert it to someone else if it's a mental
Mhm.
thing instead of like just going through their checklist of you definitely know better than me, but like to my knowledge, like like a course of action, like if it's this symptom, then for this let's prescribe this pill, or like a like a symptom numbing approach versus a root cause
Yes.
healing
Well, they
approach.
use the
So
diagnostic
yeah,
manual to
yeah,
diagnose based on symptoms,
diagnostic manual,
versus,
right?
you know, connecting the dots with all the
Finding the root,
symptoms
yeah,
and why are these symptoms happening and what's the
yeah,
actual causes of these symptoms versus, okay, let's give you a diagnosis. And now that we have a diagnosis, we can A, do this treatment modality, or B, or A and B, prescribe this medication. So it's a very linear type of, very hyper focused, rigid system, I
yeah,
guess I should say.
right, system,
And versus,
got you,
what we're now learning about our health is it is not simple. There are so many different aspects that play into our health, and we can't just
right.
focus on symptoms and numbing, dulling symptoms. That's not treatment. That's keeping people stuck in the same cycle. They're not teaching them how this developed in the first place and the why, and that is the difference with
Why?
root cause medicine.
100%. And that's what it is, right? I feel like when nurses have access to such an amazing like this future that we're talking about, they're going to feel aligned, it'll feel more meaningful to them. But along with that, what do you think are the steps we can take to unburden frontline workers like these
Oh, yes.
nurses from this stress, from this burnout?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love that you asked that. So, I think, allowing, longer breaks, allowing, nurses even time to get off the unit and even get outside if they want to. Um, just more breaks, and feeling like they can maybe have a safe place to kind of decompress, whether it's, I know some hospitals are doing it, but kind of like a Zen room, they're called, where they can go
Mm,
there. I think there needs to be just more focus on wellness for nurses and healthcare providers, nursing assistants, everybody that's caring for these patients, whether it is, reimbursing, a wellness type trip, or I have a greater vision of having like wellness retreats like for nurses and healthcare practitioners where they can step away, and like maybe hospitals get on board and they reimburse some of that, or they give them an allowance to go on a wellness retreat and to recharge. So I think it's just hospitals and their administration actually seeing that, you want nurses and healthcare providers for them to be healthy, so they will show up as their best self and the best type of caregiver and be on their game for their patients. Um, and that starts with pouring into them and allowing them to have a work-life balance. Maybe 12-hour shifts are not always the answer. I don't know. But then you have the argument of, there's less continuity of care if there's more, if there's 8-hour shifts, let's say, then patients are having
right.
more different caregivers caring for them. So there's a whole thing to like look at. But I think just allowing nurses to have that work-life balance, being understanding of the practitioners, that are trying to juggle home life and also be a caregiver, in the acute care system, and just finding ways, I guess, to pour back into them or recognize, maybe
Hmm.
hiring a masseuse a couple times a month to come in and give some
Yeah.
quick 15-minute massages, to nurses.
Hmm.
Even when they are rewarding the unit with something, it doesn't always have to be pizza and cake and chips and pretzels, right? Like starting to give them, nourishing food and, just pouring back into those frontline workers. So, yeah.
Love it. I love it. And like when you were mentioning that the argument between the 12-hour shifts versus the 8-hour shifts, one thing that came to my mind is that, like, there might one great solution to that could probably be a very easy to use interface where, like, for example, nurse one treated a girl. Sorry, why did I say that? Treated a patient, right?
Mhm.
And her 8-hour shift is done. Now, from that, having a very good system as to being able to r- jog up, not a jog up, but like update and debrief
Mhm.
the next nurse very well. I think that must be a definite improvement towards that. So it's basically like, if I were to be a nurse and I know exactly what helped Jane, that I can basically, between, like, I can have like a 5-minute conversation with you as the next nurse to make sure that you're up to speed on things, to make sure that, she doesn't feel like there's an abrupt
Disconnection.
block,
Yes.
disconnection within the
Well, we
care.
do. So we do nursing handoff and report. But it's
Right.
not
Yeah.
very standardized. So I think things can obviously be missed within in the cracks and forgot to be mentioned.
Hmm.
So maybe also
Yeah.
tying it down to, a really comprehensive style report sheet that everybody is using and utilizing. So that way it's very
Yeah.
systematic. I know we hate to be rigid and systematic, but in the sense of giving report on a patient, you do have to very go through things systematically so things don't get missed. So maybe standardizing that. And there are hospitals that I've worked at that have a standard kind of report sheet. But just focusing on that good communication to the oncoming shift. And so there are no you know, abruptions of care and continuity of care. And then also communicating with the patients, like, I'm going to be leaving for the day. You're going to be in great hands with so and so. And
Right.
just communicating to these patients, because then often we don't even sometimes say bye to them and that somebody else is coming and they just see somebody else come in the room. They're like, wait, who are you? And they're so confused.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to communication. Communicate with patients. They don't know what's going on. We assume they do, but they don't always know what's going on. And just talking to them and being a friendly face and say, "Hey, I'm going to be leaving for the day, but I want to let you know, Christy's coming in. You're going to be in great hands with her. I've told her all about you." And just teaching also our providers to communicate like that to patients, like they're truly our
Right.
family members. But I know with
Right.
burnout, we get numb. We just want to shut down and leave. We don't really even have the energy to communicate sometimes, and that's where pouring back into our frontline workers, where they have that energy and that passion, maybe they feel reignited in their career path, because they feel like their hospital sees them and is taking care of them and understands wellness. And then I think that makes all the difference to then people wanting to stay in the nursing profession or wanting to remain a doctor when they feel like their health is not just declining. They feel like they have a work-life balance. They feel good in their skin and in their health, and that their hospital system or their employer is pouring back into them with different wellness things that I think are not there yet. And that's always been my like vision, is pouring back into these front care workers. So really like eventually, and I've taught and toggled back and forth with different like business coaches, but like niching down really just to like nurses, and how can we pour
Right.
back into nurses or nursing assistants and people that are really at the bedside providing this, hands-on care. It's exhausting, and patients are heavy. They're
I
heavier than
imagine.
ever before. Patients are overweight and they're lifting them and pulling them and they're hurting their backs and they're rushing through their meals, and they don't even know how to pack maybe a healthy meal, and it's just this, and they're reaching for energy drinks and like cups and cups and cups of coffee, and it's just this endless like cycle. So how can we also educate and inform our frontline workers about functional medicine and wellness? And it's just, there's a lot of pieces to it, but it's really actually exciting. It's a good thing that we're at this point having these
A-
conversations, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, yeah, your mission is so inspiring, and I'm gonna stay posted. Well, stay up to date on all the different advances that are being made, you know. I am curious though, how what are the steps you're taking like to reach out to these nurses or, you know, hopefully try to inspire change within this space?
Sure. I am still working, part-time as a nurse, so having conversations,
Mhm.
with my coworkers and also,
Right.
having them see what I'm doing, and just how am I caring for my body? What am I bringing to my nursing
Mhm.
shift? And just like how, our kids watch us, like everybody's watching all that we're doing, right?
Right.
So just
Yeah.
teaching them from what they just kind of see and just having those open dialogues, but and reaching out on Instagram to people and making some nurse specific kind of content because that's what I can really relate to.
Right.
And maybe I need to make more of that, and attract more nurses. I
Yes.
definitely need to, and that's something that I've gone back and forth with. I don't want to niche down too much and exclude other women. But really, just burnout. Burnout is burnout. Moms have burnout. Stay at home moms have burnout. Women have burnout. Men have burnout. We all have burnout, right? But I think my mission is leading me more and more and more to like focusing on the nurses. And that's where I think
Right.
having like a group, eventually like a group coaching kind of program or
Mhm.
community for nurses to be heard, to understand each other, to have practical tips for how to come to their shift, prepared and with hydration and remineralized water and healthy meals
Right.
and all that stuff and
Right.
their gut health and their mineral balancing and how to read labels, like having a community like that for them, and then eventually have wellness retreats is kind of where I keep seeing my greater vision maybe going. So maybe God willing, moving towards that direction of having like a nurse kind of community, like a collective.
Love it, love it. Yeah, because it's funny you mentioned like some business, like you like the niching
Yeah.
down, like that lingo. There's another one that I hear a lot, and it's like this. They were explaining to me how it works. Like when you bring a product or a service out into the market, like what is the general progression of your audience growth?
Mhm, mhm,
Right. And they say first, it's like usually great brands or great products, they niche down, as you said, into one
mhm.
specific person. And then once they really serve that small niche, it's like that starts pouring out to other people. So, like right now, you got nurse moms, but then it's going to be sorry,
Yeah.
it's just going to, it's
Yeah.
nurses. Then you got
Yeah.
moms. And then you got not just, then you got women as a whole. Then you have men. And then it's like a whole group
Movement.
of people. It's an ecosystem, it's a
Yeah.
movement, it's just yeah, and then it's like you can really have an impact in the whole world, like, you know, as to how we can actively combat that burnout and prioritize
Yes,
self-care.
thank you. I've had business yes, I've heard this multiple times, and I think I need to also, you've also mentioned it. It is so true, if you speak to everybody, you speak to no one. But, speaking to a select group of people, and then, like you said, once you kind of establish and you build authority and, like a brand, then, expanding from there for sure. So
Then that yeah, then they speak for you. Like then your clients will speak for you and say, "Kara's she's the one who's gonna like if are you burned out? Reach out to her. You're not a nurse, don't worry about it. I know you're a mom, but you got to talk to her." And then slowly that network of grassroots it just
yes,
grows
yes,
into this
you're right,
beautiful
Trishy,
collective.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Good insight.
But I'm so excited for you.
Oh, thank
you're already
you.
doing everything, but it was just the food for thought, saying that you're definitely along the perfect path.
Thank you, thank you. I think I needed to hear that reminder though, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And, Kara, once again, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
It's always nice to I'm sure your kids have something special planned for you.
Yep, yep.
And,
We're gonna go out to
and yeah,
eat
I'm
and make
very
good
grateful.
food choices.
Oh, yeah?
Because
Look
you
at
still have to
that.
go out to
See?
eat and
That's
enjoy life. So, but just trying to
yes,
make good choices, right? So, yeah, so we'll go out to
absolutely.
eat, have a good
Aside from
meal.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Maybe aside from the the birthday cake, I think today is a good day to enjoy something that's a bit sweet, but besides that, healthy food choices
Yes,
for
well,
sure.
and I'm actually going to go to Pilates, so that to me is like a birthday gift, Pilates with no
Ah,
children, and they're all in school, so
love it.
that's what's coming up, for me, so anyways.
That's awesome. Kara, thank you so much for all your time
Thank you
today.
so much for having me.
We're so grateful. I feel like what I took away from this conversation is that true healing that we need is root cause healing, not symptom
Mhm,
numbing. And the best way we can care for others is by first caring for
mhm.
ourselves and first making sure we are in check, not only to be able to care for others, but to be able to set an example for others as to what standards should you have for yourself. So
Absolutely.
deeply inspired, so grateful that I was able to meet you, and so excited about how you kill it in
Oh,
this
thank you
space.
so much for having me, Trishy. It was a pleasure talking to you and unpacking all of this. So thank you.
Thank you.